Our question of the day, we want to hear from you in this hour. We're looking at all the younger people to fill us in on this one. I need to understand a little bit better. The question is, has the economy affected your decision in having a child? Scan the QR code there on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. Vote yes, vote no. Just let us know where you're at in all this so we can better understand what's happening in the lives of younger people. We're going to look at this later on and throughout all of the show today. You know, it's no mistake that things are getting much more expensive. A new study is showing a link between the state of our economy and the rate at which younger people are having children. The study done by Securian Financial surveyed 1,500 Americans who are around the ages you might start having kids. They say the current state of the economy is a big factor in them having children or not. We're going to be talking live to the folks behind that study in just a moment. But real quick, yesterday, Dr. Mona Hanna was here discussing a program that is about to roll out in some Wayne County communities, giving new moms and families cash to help bridge the economic gap when somebody is taking time off work to have a baby. From what I've read, this was intended to kind of fill an economic gap. When you have a child, mom sometimes isn't able to go back to work. Right. Sometimes dad is taking time off. Right. And that's a problem. And when you don't have that paycheck coming in, it causes a big issue.
Yeah, it turns out that the poorest time in your life is around that time that you're having a baby. It's around childbirth. Right. Moms come out of the workforce, they lose income. We don't have paid leave. Babies are expensive.
They're cute, but they're expensive.
They're so cute. It's estimated like $20,000 just in that first year of life. So this actually is the period of the greatest economic shock in your whole life. This is when you are, period, the poorest. The poorest time in your life is when you're having a baby.
All right, so here's some of the numbers currently involved. According to Securian Financial, the cost of raising a child from birth to age 17 increased 42% from 2011 to 2023. Michelle is nodding her head. Yes, she is. Childcare costs alone have risen roughly 22% from 2020 to 2024. That's just 4 years. And then there's wages. A study conducted last year from Bankrate shows the average wage for an American has only risen 17.4% since 2021. So there's bills, debt, groceries, gas for the car. All of this is adding up, especially if you have a baby. We're making this full circle here. Many younger Americans are concerned, even discouraged, about having a child of their own. Lydia Gillick is from Securian Financial, joining us virtually right now. Lydia, thank you so much for joining us. This study was interesting because I think it's something we've all been kind of considering is happening, but we haven't seen the numbers here. What was your biggest takeaway from this?
First of all, thank you, Nick, for having me join you this morning. I think one of the things that was a big takeaway for us at Securian was thinking about how employers can help support their employees as they're going through the process of fertility, as well as those first couple of years of having a child.
So forgive me, but what do you mean by that? How can an employer support through fertility or benefits or more?
Really, it's a whole host of things that an employer can do to really support those employees through that process. And as you mentioned, we surveyed about 1,500 people as part of this process of childbearing years, really working for large employers. But thinking about things like the cost of childcare, as you pointed out, but also things like what can an employer do from a benefits perspective. So thinking about things such as paid time off, maternity and paternity leave, as well as thinking about families that have caregiving issues, really on the older side of that generation as well. So really thinking about a number of those features that they can offer to employees in terms of some of those benefits, I think really is something that employers can do to help.
So all of these are key factors for a young mother or young families when they're probably looking for employment and looking for their next careers. But how do you ask those questions? Because I don't want to say that's a taboo issue, but if I go into a job interview and say, talk to me about your paternity or maternity leave, I'm going to have a family, some employers might have a bad taste in their mouth. They shouldn't, but I think that does happen.
I think people do have concerns about that, either correctly or incorrectly. Some things that people can do as they're going through that process of interviewing for a job, look online, see if you can find some information about the benefits that the employer offers. Talk to other people who work for that employer and look at some of the websites that are out there to understand what some of those benefits are and how the employer is rated from those websites.
That's actually a really good point. Do your homework and your research beforehand. You had an opportunity again to talk to nearly 1,500 people. How much, the numbers say one thing, but what were they saying in terms of what their fears were about the economy or the cost of living? Where are they at?
Really, we saw about 75% of millennials and Gen Zs really having concerns about what those costs may be and potentially thinking about, is this the time for me to have a child? And that also can create a situation where an individual will delay having a child, and that can lead to increased fertility issues, which is another area where employers can really step in and help their employees as they're going through that process. Because if you do delay those childbearing years, you may wind up with some fertility issues around that. So those are the sorts of things that people are thinking about. Do we do it now? Do we do it later? And people always say there's no perfect time, but people do need to make those decisions and have to weigh some of those considerations.
I can attest to that. I'm a father of three. There is no perfect time. I promise you that. Again, I asked you the question. It seems like there's really no surprise here. It makes perfect sense that people are hesitant to have a family when most people right now are living paycheck to paycheck.
Right. And you did see that the statistics that you brought up there as well, wages have not increased quite as quickly as some of childcare costs and some of the other costs that we have seen. And we really have seen fertility drop over the last several years. Employers can also bring other things to the table, such as additional benefits. I saw as we were doing the intro that there's some benefits that they were mentioning. You can also bring in, again, the maternity and paternity claim, or maternity and paternity benefits, but also benefits that can allow people to have potentially additional protection, such as a hospital indemnity product, something that Securian offers to employer groups to allow for costs to help, or benefits to help offset those costs of the hospitalization associated with childbirth. So really thinking about the breadth of benefits that can be offered.
We asked the question at the beginning of this interview if people are affected, and right now 72% of people are saying yes, the economy has affected your decision of having a child. So again, no surprise there. I did want to ask you, earlier in our broadcast, we had a conversation with the chief growth officer for the state of Michigan, trying to increase the population, especially of younger people here, and some of that's done through career opportunities. With your background and your ties to the corporate world, would you advise companies to, number one, first of all, just provide better not only healthcare but leave options for new families, but to market that and let people know, because that's a big selling point when you're trying to attract the right candidates?
I think that is a very true statement. And also, so you mentioned marketing. I think that's very important. Tell employees and tell them frequently the benefits that you are offering to them. That makes them appreciate those benefits all that much more. And also, as an employer, don't feel uncomfortable reaching out to employees and asking them what are the benefits that are most important to them, and take that into consideration as you are building your benefits package and thinking about your overall benefits philosophy.
Is that a taboo conversation? I mean, some people are hesitant to start discussing benefits while they're in the job interview process.
I don't think you necessarily have to do it during the job interview process. This is something that an employer can do with their existing population. Ask really what is going to be important to you. But as somebody who's going through that interview process, you can definitely ask to see a copy of that benefits booklet and start to do some research on your own.
Gotcha. All right, Lydia, thank you so much for your time this morning. We appreciate all the insight and, again, the study that's enlightening, because this is an issue that is going to be plaguing us for years. This is a generational problem that's not going to get any better until we find ways to help these folks and get the right numbers and the right lines here.
You're very correct. Thank you so much for having me, Nick.
Thanks, Lydia. Appreciate your time.